Today we're taking a look at Khaman Maluach's BAL tape, getting some first impressions ahead of his freshman season at Duke. What strikes me straight away is the frame and the catch radius. Maluach measured in at 7'1" with a 9'5" standing reach at the Nike Hoop Summit. I've got a couple of physical comparisons I'll delve into later on. He's a naturally wide 2-foot leaper, which is ideal for this lengthy play finishing archetype, being a vertical spacer and dunker spot option. It's easy to imagine Maluach excelling in this role at higher levels when granted better spacing. Defenses pack the paint in the BAL, with the league-wide 3-point percentage being 28.5% and the City Oilers sitting 2% below that mark. Factor in Maluach being the primary focus for opposing defenses to shut down, and you have a recipe for heightened defensive attention on the interior. On first impression, I already have a growing concern about his touch and more specifically his hands, which will be an emerging trend as we move forward. Here he has a loose grasp of the ball and isn't able to go directly up with it, and here he fumbles the catch, leading to a turnover. He averaged 3 turnovers per game with the City Oilers, which bumps up to 3.3 if you include his NBA Academy BAL games. His straight line driving, especially off fake DHOs, caught me off guard. The coordination for a 7'1" teenager is a cut above average, and I like the finishing through contact. This becomes significantly more interesting as he progresses as a high DHO decision maker, which would allow those lanes to emerge at higher levels. Maluach led the BAL in offensive rebounds per game at 5.0. He showed great intentions to worm his way into the interior of a defensive unit possession after possession, where he was obviously aided by his 9'5" standing reach. He has a good habit of lowering his center of gravity and attempting to physically contain defensive rebounders, but his ability to secure, much less convert on these opportunities, was often hindered by his lack of lower body strength, where he'd get muscled deep under the basket towards the baseline. Maluach's shooting progression in tandem with his size and theoretical defensive skill set are what accommodate for the rawer aspects of his overall game. Although a 33 attempt sample size, he shot 30.3% on 3-pointers at 3.7 attempts per game. Many of these attempts come from floating out to the corner or trailing the player. I particularly love what he does here, reading the under, popping to the 45 and realigning his footing on the hop before cashing in the triple. While I have my reserves with his interior touch, I believe his touch on jump shots sits independent of that, and the shooting is relatively encouraging at this stage of his development. He also absolutely loves going to this fadeaway jumper over his right shoulder in the post, sometimes to his detriment. He doesn't have the strength to convincingly be a back down threat, and the right shoulder fade is so prevalent that it's an easy scout for the defense. I do, however, love this possession, where he attacks the opposition's top foot, and as soon as they shuffle to deny middle, he counters and utilizes his long strides and high release point to get the shot he was wanting. The issue is, many of these other attempts, he isn't able to generate the same advantages due to his limited strength, spatial awareness, and lack of counters. He doesn't play out of the post often and usually transforms these into face-up scoring opportunities. As of right now, he can get quite overwhelmed playing out of these positions, contributing to his high turnover rate. I like this position here, where he gives that initial post glance and is able to leverage his height to find the slot cutter. Just reiterating on Maluach's interior touch, there's a lot of struggle in it at the moment when he's asked to do more than be a narrow play finisher. Even then, there are some apparent shortcomings related to his poor hands. Just based on my quick watch for first impressions, Maluach's pick and roll game is a work in progress and more theoretical than tangible, but there are positives to take away from it. His early exit stuff is my favourite approach for him, largely because his positional agility currently far outweighs his positional strength. Here he does an excellent job of reading the over and slipping to the rim. His on-ball screen positioning can improve, as at the moment he's trying to catch players on his hip and he doesn't possess the lower body strength to do so, and they blow right through it. Moving on, Maluach's measurements from the Nike Hoop Summit present similarities to the draft combine measurements of JaVale McGee and Walker Kessler. It's also fair to acknowledge that Kessler was a much stronger and older player entering the NBA, and Maluach will benefit greatly from NBA S&C. So let's take a look at how Walker Kessler operated as an on-ball screener and a roll man in his rookie season. I think Maluach can reach these same heights, fluidly flipping his hips, exiting and beelining to the rim. He has the tools to succeed in a similar fashion. Where Walker bests him is his positioning when making contact during on-ball screens. Khaman is a much more successful screener when he plays closer to the action, using his chest and core to absorb the hit, just like Walker is doing in these clips. Now onto the defense. Maluach is a shot deterrence monster with a 7'5" wingspan and impressive ground coverage. He had a 7.1% block rate this past season and averaged 2.8 blocks per game and 3.1 including his academy games. He's able to explode upwards off 2 and reject shots at the illegal apex with either hand, proving him to be a dangerous weak side rim protector and roamer. This is one of my favourite plays of his, where he defends around a Gortat screen and displays his excellent offhand ball tracking ability. That being said, Maluach's rim protection isn't all gold despite his upper echelon tools, due to his periodically shaky defensive positioning. Here, he's slow to his rotation, allowing the opposing point guard to get 2 feet in the paint and stranding himself in no man's land. He's got a bad habit of overcommitting his attention as a help defender and turning his back to drop off and cutter options. In defending the pick and roll, the City Oilers used Maluach in a deeper drop relative to most NBA standards, predominantly playing at the level of the free throw line. He provides intrigue in the application of his length and mobility defending ball screens, being able to swipe to dissuade the ball handler and then recover to the roller. However, he does tend to get caught going through the motions of these actions now and again, where he needs to be more reactive to the play. The selection of games I watched gave Maluach a variety of different looks via opposing players in the post, from the undersized cohort of Bangui, the tit-for-tat physical matchup against Al Ali, and some testing competition versus League MVP and Aussie NBL star Joe Lillachil. The major takeaway here is that he lacks strength and maturity, and for all his length, you don't want him getting targeted in the post. However, I do think we should give him a little leeway. He is just 17 years old in a relatively underdeveloped but still professional basketball league, and it is common for even teenage NBA prospects to be poor defenders in professional leagues. Now, I'm not freaking out about it, I'm not up in arms yet, keyword being yet. Monitoring his progression in this area, much like any other area of his game, is going to be the most telling about his future projection rather than his current state. A lot of what can be said about his offensive rebounding carries over to the defensive end, where he pulled down a whopping 14.2 rebounds per game, 9 of those being defensive. His intent to put a body on opposing players and box out does slightly pale compared to his performance rebounding on the offensive end, but this could be related to his previous developmental environment more than anything. To sum it up, at these early stages of my watch of Maluach, this is the picture I'm gathering. We're talking about a long, mobile drop defender and roaming threat whose processing development and strength gains greatly dictate the impact of his tools long term. He's a vertical spacer and an early exit screening specialist whose floor spacing could be on track to separate him from the crowd of toolsy, defensive-minded divers. I think Maluach's in-season development at Duke will be vital towards his evaluation next cycle, so in other words, stay tuned.